It sounds like it's been a bit of a journey, right, to get
Yes,
here.
indeed.
And I guess before we even start, or I just wanted to dive deeper into your research and the concept of lasting memories and what makes them lasting and not, to kind of maybe put a different spin to a lot of the research that you've done. I just want to say happy early birthday.
Thank you very much.
Um, as someone who has experienced that much life, did you expect, did you think you would get to the point that you have in life, in research, in relationships, and anything else that matters to you?
Yes, I thought I would in relationships. I did not know, of course, how long I was going to live. And I've had, if I may say so, I've had a very satisfactory career in academics. Things have gone very well for me. I also
Mm.
have some nice hobbies. I play music. I played both classical music and played in jazz groups for a number of years. So I had a lot of hobbies on the side that lightened my life a lot. But the main trajectory has been my research career.
What made you get into this? Because I briefly looked at one of the videos that I want to say was posted in 2018. You were being introduced in front of a class of students, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the name you mentioned there was Edward, and how you got a call from this gentleman, and from there it kind of
Yes,
went
yeah.
on to a lifelong journey. What got you interested into this concept, especially the subject of memory?
It started when I was a graduate student, really. I was a graduate student at the University of California, Berkeley, and I started working on a project there in which they were attempting to identify chemicals in the brain that might be responsible for the making of memory.
Mm.
And not to get into too much technical detail, the chemical they were interested in is acetylcholine, which is a transmitter that enables the transmission from one neuron to the other. And so I was analyzing compounds in the drugs that influence this transmitter system. And then I backed away from it and I asked the question, why am I doing this anyway? What is its importance? And the real importance is understanding the nature of memory. So that changed my focus from just a lab-based doing experiments to asking broader questions about what is the nature of memory, what are its characteristics, in addition to how is it implemented in the brain, the broader perspective. So that started early on. And since a few years after my PhD, I have focused intensively on studying the processes of memory and the processes in the brain that enable the formation of memory. It's sort of a science dedication, if you like, a pathway throughout my career.
Do we need it to survive? Do we need memory to survive?
Well, memories are us. Uh, if we don't have memory, we simply don't exist. Look
Mm.
at people who don't have memory. They're lying in a bed with people taking care of them, and late stage Alzheimer's disease, for example. Everything else is working, but the brain is not working to provide memories so that people don't know what to do. They don't know to eat, for example. You have to have a memory in order to know that you have to meet and eat and what to meet. Uh,
Hmm.
we are our memories, and that's all there is to it. The rest of it is just stuff that enables the memories to survive.
Mm. There's something that's interesting that you just mentioned, as well as that you mentioned in a lot of the research that you've shared with me. And I even took a note yesterday as I was rereading it. There's one thing in particular that I thought was very interesting. So there's a statement in there, and obviously for people who are not aware of the research, I'll make sure we include it somehow so they can access it as well. But there's one in particular that I found interesting, and that is our brains, remarkable as they are, cannot begin to contain and give equal weight to our every moment of life. For me,
Yeah.
the question is, why do you think that is? I mean, I know it's a lot of information to retain. Is that really the question? We just don't have the processing power to retain all that information, or is it how it's stored? I know it partially is because I know you spoke about it being stress infused. Take me through that. Why is it that we're not able to capture all of them?
It's all of the above. First of all, we don't have memory. We have a set of memory systems. So consider for a moment our discussion we just had. You don't remember in detail every word that you used. You just
Correct.
remember that you said some things and you have an idea of what you said. So we have a very brief memory of events that just occurred that are passing. It's called immediate memory. And for example, if I give you 15 digits to remember, you can recite them, but you won't be able to remember them, even though that you had 15 digits presented. If I give you 6, you will. So you have the capacity to remember that for a brief period of time. And then tomorrow you would remember that I asked you to repeat some digits. So you'd have a long-term memory of the event, but you would not have a detailed memory of the specific experiences. Now you build up those specific experiences either with repetition or with, if it's emotionally powerful, you may remember it quite well. A repetition, of course, is an easy way to do it. If I say you have to remember your cell phone number, or you have to remember your address or your driver's license, you memorize it. And you
Hmm.
do it by repeating it over and over again to yourself or using it very frequently, and then it becomes there with you. But if I give you a new set of complicated pieces of information, you will understand it immediately, be able to repeat it, but not in the future. So memories build with repetition, and they also build with emotional value of it. Those are the two things that create memories that are more lasting than these brief things of what's the telephone number.
How strong do it's interesting that you even mentioned this because that's one of the questions I wrote down as well. How emotionally strong do the experiences have to be in order for the memory to be as long as it can be?
Not very, not very strong at all.
No?
First, I'll demonstrate it, and then secondly, I'll cite some experiments. Suppose this is not true. This is not true, but I'm going to say something to you. It's not true. I've just listened to you for a few minutes, but you're the stupidest interviewer that I have ever had occasion to experience. All right. Now, that's just a few words.
Hmm.
My guess is you're going to remember that.
I'm
And
feeling the shift in my body.
right. And what's happened is adrenaline just took over, and you've been insulted. And so adrenaline surges, and that will play a role in your experience. Now, you won't remember all the words that I said, but
Hmm.
you'll remember that not really, but that I insulted you. And you
Hmm.
remember that long after you remember any of the other details of this interview. Why? Because it's automatic. Something I said it very softly and very subtly, but you understood it. And then adrenaline flowed within your body, and then that has a lot of consequences in your brain that will make a lasting memory of that experience,
Wow.
whether you
So,
want whether you want it or not.
well, it's an interesting thing to experience from my lens because it also makes me think of the whole concept of negative and positive memories, right? And how negative experiences perception is that they impact you differently compared to the positive ones. And that was one of the things that I was curious in learning from you as well. And that's why does that appear to be the perception that the negative experiences have a longer impact on memory than the positive ones, such as the example we just experienced, right? You
Because I,
saying those words and then
yeah,
me fully experiencing that through my body and then creating that like lasting effect rather than the positive one.
because it has a more powerful effect on this autonomic system. Now, for example, it has been shown in other experiments, however, that if you show subjects beautiful roses and wonderful pets and things of that kind, they'll also have a stronger memory. But
Hmm.
it's very hard to have as strong an emotional experience for something that is positive than it is for something that is negative. That is, you look at a rose and you think it's beautiful, but that's not the same as stepping on a tack when you're trying to go to the bathroom at night. You see, it's easier to get a strong emotional experiences. But all of the experiments that have been done that say that whatever is true for bad things is also true for good things. It's just
Mm.
harder for good things to create such a strong emotional experience. For example, if you sit down to dinner and the meal is good, it's the food that you like and it's good, you'll remember, yeah, we had a nice dinner the other night, went out to this place and so on. But if you took one spoonful and it was horrible, you'd remember that the rest of your life, and you'd be telling that story to all of your friends 6 months from now and 10 years from now. Oh, we went to that
Mm-hmm.
restaurant. Boy, was that food awful. You see what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? It's
Yeah.
easier to create something that is bad than something that is good. Both will have the same reaction in the body and in the brain, but the bad will override the good just because the effects will be larger.
Do we have more of a negative bias then towards experiences, towards life in general? Why is negativity that much stronger than positivity, I guess?
Because it's essential for life. It's essential for life. You have to avoid dangerous animals, let's say, in the evolution of humans. You have to avoid dangerous animals. You have to avoid poisons, all of these things that are essential for survival. And the good things are less immediate for survival. Um, if something tastes good, well, that's good. You'll do it again. But if something makes you desperately ill, that's something to avoid. It's just, I think it's the way that our nature surrounds us.
Mm-hmm. So that's something that I've wondered or been curious about is why does that seem to be the norm? And it's not, it hasn't been only true for me. Many other people that I've spoken with is that there is this not necessarily negativity bias, but it's just I don't even know how to describe it. Easier to gravitate to or with, and
But the brain doesn't care. It's just the degree to which the systems that are involved in storing memory, the extent to which they're activated. And
mm-hmm.
bad things will activate it more readily and more intensely on the average than good things. So you get a taste of something good. Is that equivalent to stepping on a nail, for
No.
example? You have to look at the bad things, and on average, the bad things are going to have more an effect on us than the good,
Mm-hmm.
as far as storing the information is concerned.
Mm. Does the information flow through the same parts of the brain, same circuits?
Yes.
It does?
Yes. For the most part, yes. Uh, I have, in order to answer that, I have to say something about how these systems work.
Sure.
So let's suppose that you that you fell and no, let's make it easy. Somebody says, "I love you,"
Mm-hmm.
or on the right side. All right.
Since we've had the opposite experience, now let's
Right.
experience the positive one.
He says, "I love you," and you're handsome, and just I love being around you. All right. And that's the first time that person has said that to you. All of a sudden, you will release adrenaline into your body from the adrenal gland, right? This adrenaline will activate a system that goes up into the brain and activates in the brain noradrenaline or norepinephrine from a very specific, and activates a very specific region of the brain called the amygdala. And the amygdala inside the brain is right here on either side, amygdala. That's a Greek word. The amygdala just gets turned on. So the adrenaline is in the body. It turns on the release of adrenaline here, activates the amygdala. The amygdala turns on. It's not a knowledge thing. It just gets activated and it projects to all of the regions of the brain where memories are stored. So if the amygdala gets cranked up like this, it squirts out its activation of other brain regions, and it says, in effect, something important happened, store the information that you just received through the senses. So it's just an amplifier. It's an
Mm-hmm.
amplifier, right? So if somebody says, you look nice today, well, that turns on this system. It goes up here, brain gets activated, and the amygdala says, store that information. Somebody says, you look nice today. On the other hand, you are in an automobile accident and you're injured, but you're alive, and the amygdala fires, store this, store this, store this, store this. You know, a 5-alarm thing, and the amygdala that sends out the information. The amygdala is not storing it. It's sending out, activating the regions of the brain where information is stored, so it is stored more intensely in those regions. So the reason that that negative emotions have more of an effect is that it does more of that than saying, oh, this peach tastes nice.
Mm.
You see, they're both doing that. They're working in exactly the same way to activate this region to influence the storage of information in other brain regions.
Fascinating. Like that listening to you and then also reading the different things you described in the research that you've sent me, it's such a fascinating concept to me because, well, so much of it is happening without even me having any sort of control or decision making over the process, right?
It's just automatic. And, you know, why do we have it? Look at it from a survival point of view.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we learn to do things and to remember things. Important things are going to be better remembered. So if you're a Neanderthal and you need to know where the wood is to make a fire, then that's a very important thing. And if you need to know where the water is and so on, let's say you're very thirsty and you find the water, then that's going to activate this system. So you remember more where the water was found. It's just a normal thing that's occurring all the time in our lives. It's online. So if this system is mildly activated, it'll create a mild memory. If it's strongly activated, it will create a strong memory. So the degree of memory of a specific event depends upon the activation, the degree of activation of this system in the brain.
Wow. So a car accident will probably activate it much higher than, let's say, just like a birthday party or a lesser event.
Right. Correct.
Speaking of important things, what's important to you right now,
What's
especially
important?
as you're approaching your birthday?
Well, let me see. What's important to me? They're more general right now as I enjoy being with my family. I have a 5-year-old great-granddaughter that I meet with every day and take for walks, and that is very high on my scale of importance. I am planning a trip to Switzerland, where I'm going to get an award in February. And that's very important to me to make the planning for that. And some of my family members are going with me for that. So we're in the process of making those arrangements. Um, um, yeah, I'd say it's family and events, both immediate and planning. Yeah.
Mm. What would
No,
you say? What would you say, just based on your research and kind of direction that it's heading in the role that you have within that? What direction is it all going in? Because I'm realizing now, and I would say I was probably one of the last generations that was able to experience not necessarily better or worse, but a different type of childhood where I had to ride my bike right across town to see if my friend was home because we didn't have access to cell phones or anything that was more instant communication. When it comes to studying memories, when it comes to preserving relationships, connections with other people, how has this thing or things, how have they impacted that?
well, they've changed things in so great many ways.
Hmm.
And just mentioning a cell phone, this is a way of keeping in contact with not only nearby friends, but distant friends that we did not have an opportunity to do that before. I remember in my own career with my close scientific friends throughout the world. In my kind of life, you develop friends throughout the world because science is an international operation. So I had friends in many countries, and it was letters, and then it was fax, and then it gradually became email over a period of time, and then it became Zoom. Just think of the different ways of communicating with people throughout the world, and that's changed our opportunity to interact with people. It's also changed science because we have an opportunity to interact more frequently and in more detail than we ever did before. If an article was published when I was a graduate student many years ago, and I wanted to have a copy of that article, I had two options. One is I could go to the library and make a photocopy, which is actually taking a picture of each page of that article using photographic paper, and then having a copy of the article, and it was about that thick because it's photographic paper. And what we do now, we just go online, zap, and I've got a copy of it right now. That's changed that kind of communication in ways that's just hard to describe. It's so different from the early days.
Mm-hmm.
So communication has changed both in terms of personal relations with family and friends and so on, but also changed the way that science occurs because of the increased and facile communication systems that we have.
Mm. For anyone that is interested in learning about your work, anything that you've done, anything that you're doing, what are some ways they can do that
Well, they can go to the
outside
library.
of becoming a student?
Um, if they go to PubMed, I suppose people can go on PubMed. They can see the articles that I've written, which is a very large number.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the library, you'll find books that I've written, or even go to journals in the libraries and find articles that I have written. Go on any of the general programs that you download from on TV, and you'll find lots of lectures that I have given. You know the names of them. I can't think of the names of them, but what you want to go on and see a program or something, you just go on. Well, if you put my name in it, you will find dozens of lectures that I've given, which are available for people to see.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I've never been asked this question before, so
Does UC Irvine make a lot of the information public?
yes, yes. And if they're in the area, they can go to a building that's named after me. There's a large science building that's named after me, and in the entrance to the building, there are some cases there that you can see sort of the history of my academic life all spread out with material that's available.